All right, we're about to dive into a really fascinating and very specific take on Islamic end-of-times prophecies. And this isn't just about some ancient, far-off events. This is a timeline that, according to the source material we're looking at, actually kicks off in the 20th century and lays out a roadmap for major world events all the way to the end of days. So let's walk through how these traditions are being pieced together today.
So let's just start with a pretty big question to get us thinking. What if the huge geopolitical events that we see on the news every single day, what if they were actually described in texts written over 1,000 years ago? That's the core idea we're going to unpack here.
According to this interpretation, the clock for these major signs doesn't start ticking in some mythical ancient past. Nope, it's actually anchored right in the 20th century. This is where the first dominoes in the prophetic chain are said to fall.
What's so interesting here is how this timeline points to the 1920s as the real starting gun. The source connects this to a prophecy that the first link to break would be the central leadership of the Muslim world. And as you can see, that's interpreted as the fall of the Ottoman Caliphate. That's event number one. Right on its heels, you have Jerusalem coming under British control. And then, the big one, the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. From this perspective, these three historical events aren't random. They're the foundational signs that get the whole ball rolling.
Now, alongside these huge geopolitical shifts, the source points to two famous minor signs. The first one is pretty well known, that barefoot Arab shepherds would one day compete to build taller and taller buildings. And, a lot of people look at the skylines in the Gulf today, with giants like the Burj Khalifa, and say, well, there you go. The second sign about a slave girl giving birth to her master is, well, it's a lot more symbolic, and people are still debating what exactly that one means.
So once those initial signs are in place, the focus of this entire prophetic narrative is said to shift, and it zooms in hard on one single city, Jerusalem.
And the key phrase for this next stage is Amran al-Bayt al-Maqdis. Now, what does that mean? Well, this Arabic term basically translates to the flourishing or the building up or the centering of Jerusalem. It points to a time when the city would become the absolute focal point of everything happening in the world.
So how did this centering supposedly happen? This interpretation lays it out in 3 steps. First, you have 1967, when Israeli forces take control of the city. But for the next 50 years, Tel Aviv is still the de facto capital, right? Jerusalem's status is this huge point of contention. The real turning point, according to this timeline, happens in 2018. The move of the U.S. Embassy is seen as the final act that cements Jerusalem's status, officially putting it on the center stage and fulfilling that prophecy of Amran al-Bayt al-Maqdis.
So, with Jerusalem now set as the focal point, the timeline predicts things are about to get even more intense. The next major event on the roadmap is a massive regional war.
The prophecy that's said to come right after the centering of Jerusalem is a really grim one. Kharab al-Yathrib. That translates to the ruin of Medina. Yathrib is the city's ancient name, so its use in the prophecy is very specific. And according to this timeline, this ruin is triggered by another huge event that has to happen first. And here it is. Before Medina's ruin, a great war is predicted to break out between Iran and Israel. This conflict is seen as the catalyst, the event that kicks off a chain reaction of destruction across the entire region. And this really shows you how deep these historical roots go. You hear modern chants like, "Jews remember Khaybar," which is a direct reference to a major battle back in the 7th century. It just goes to show how these ancient religious and historical narratives are seen as pouring fuel on the fire of modern-day tensions, which could lead to this prophesied war. And the predicted outcome of this war is absolutely devastating. The source material claims the prophecy says Iran will find itself completely isolated, that it'll be abandoned by the rest of the Muslim world, and in the end, it will face just massive destruction.
So the aftermath of this huge cataclysmic war creates a massive power vacuum and a time of incredible suffering. And it's out of this chaos, according to the timeline, that a messianic figure known as the Mahdi is set to appear.
So here's how the ruin of Medina is said to play out. After the war with Iran, the victorious Israeli forces are prophesied to then turn on the surrounding Arab nations, pushing them back all the way to the borders of Medina. The destruction is supposed to be so total that the people of Medina will just flee, abandoning the city. So much so that one tradition even says wild animals will be roaming in the Prophet's mosque, and all those refugees will be heading towards Mecca.
It's among those very refugees in Mecca that the Mahdi is expected to emerge. Now, this is really important to understand. There are different views on who this person is. For Sunnis, he's often seen as a known leader, maybe from the lineage of the Prophet's grandsons, who the people will literally beg to take on the leadership.
For Shias, he is the 12th Imam, who went into hiding centuries ago and will dramatically reappear. So the details are different, but both traditions see him as this great restorer of faith and justice.
But the appearance of the Mahdi isn't just some political event. It's not just a guy showing up. It is said to be confirmed by a definitive supernatural sign, something totally unmistakable that will actually change the physical world.
And that sign is called a kasaf. The word literally means a swallowing, and in this context, we're talking about a massive cataclysm, where the ground itself just opens up and swallows something or someone whole. It's pretty wild.
So how does this incredible event confirm the Mahdi? Well, the prophecy goes like this. An army will be sent from the region of Sham, that's historical Greater Syria, to attack him in Mecca. But when this army gets to a desert location called Baida, somewhere between Mecca and Medina, the earth will literally open up and swallow the entire army. This is seen as the ultimate, undeniable, divine thumbs up for the Mahdi.
And get this event isn't just some isolated freak of nature. It's actually prophesied to be one of 3 such major events.
Yeah, the prophetic traditions talk about 3 great swallowings of the earth. One will happen in the east, another will happen in the west, and the third one, that's the one we just talked about in the Arabian Peninsula, the one that swallows the army at Baida. This puts the confirmation of the Mahdi into a much bigger picture of global, cataclysmic changes that signal the beginning of the end.
So we've just walked through a timeline that connects real historical events from our recent past to a prophesied future. Now, whether someone sees this as a literal, step-by-step roadmap or just a powerful metaphor, the fact is, this framework gives millions of people a lens to interpret what's happening in the world. And that leaves us with one final big question. How does a belief in this prophetic future actually influence the geopolitics and the actions of our world today?